Hello and welcome to Open Your Mind Radio. You have myself, Alan James.
Ah, myself, Stephen George. Good evening.
Good evening. It's Sunday the 26th of February 2017. And a bit of a wet one today, Steve. Loads of rain, very cold.
What have we got? We just got rid of Storm Doris, and I believe today we had Storm Ewan.
Oh, God.
Ewan!
Yeah, unbelievable. Well, there you go.
Yes.
There's the weather. Right. Our guest on the show is a chap called Mark Moxom. Now, Mark has been on the show before when we had Simon Spaniard on talking about the financial system. And we found out that Mark was big into health in a way that he actually hasn't seen a doctor in 40 years. And he's going to be talking to us about health and what we can do about it. So we'll be getting Mark on shortly. But before we go any further, let's find out what the communication channels are.
Okay, communication channels are...
The communication channels are email info@oymireland.com, by phone 046 927 1212, and you can also contact us direct through the OYM chat room.
Yes, the phone number again, 046 927 1212, if you want to ring in during the show to ask questions of our guest this evening. If you want to ring in from outside the Republic of Ireland, it's 00353 469 271212. Now, speaking of the website, OYMradio.com is the website. If you want to check us out there, you will see all the usual links to the Facebook anti-social media, the Skype, the Twitter, all sorts of information there. Also, the TuneIn Radio Link application, there is a link there where you can download that for free. You can check us out 24/7 on your mobile device, etc., etc. We also have the chat room there as well. A big hi to everybody already in the chat room, and also People's Internet Radio chat room as well. We're going to be monitoring both of the rooms for questions this evening. Alan.
Brilliant. Okay, now, questions received via email and Facebook. Sometimes when we have a guest on the show, people do send in questions through email or on Facebook, and unfortunately we're not logged in on Facebook during the show, and although we have our email there, we don't really actually check it. We kind of focus on the chat room, on both chat rooms on People's Internet Radio and OYM. So if you do have a question and you want to ask, the best thing to do is get on board, sign up to the chat room, send us a request for the OAM chat room, and we'll set you up for a username and a password so you can log in, and then all the questions there, rather than them coming in randomly, because Steve doesn't have access to the email system on his PC or Facebook. So if you want to ask a question, that'll be the best way to do it, through the chat room, either on OAM or on People's Internet Radio. If you can do that, that'll be fantastic. Steve.
Yeah, so I've access to nothing over here at all. Only the chat room. He said if I had access to email and Facebook and all, I wouldn't be doing anything at all.
Yeah, well, you wouldn't be talking. You'd be too busy doing everything.
I'd be too busy. Yeah, it's bad enough just trying to keep an eye on both of the chat rooms. That's plenty to do. Anyway, the Irish Mirror newspaper has issued a warning of a man posing as a member of An Garda Síochána and who was trying to snatch children. A number of incidents have been reported over the past 3 weeks. Gardaí are hunting the predator, trying to lure children into his car by pretending to be a guard. A number of incidents have been reported over the past 3 weeks in North County Dublin. He's trying to get children into his car posing as a member of An Garda Síochána. Yeah. I think we've heard of that before. That's been going on for a long time. It's nothing new. I suppose all adults can do, all we can do is inform our children. If you do see a member of An Garda Síochána, run the other way as fast as your legs can carry you.
Well, we know that there's people impersonating guards and stopping cars and mugging people.
Yeah.
But this is child snatching. This is on another level. So again, you just have to be on your guard.
You have to be on your guard. Then again, I mean, like everything else, it's in mainstream media. Is it true? I don't know. I have no first-hand knowledge of said incident or incidents. Plus, it could be just fear-mongering again.
It could be.
You know, that headline. If you had that headline on the newspaper, that'd sell papers.
Yeah, exactly. You know. So take it with a pinch of salt, or check it out yourself and see what you think. Right, Russia Today. Well, again, you know, we talk about fake news, but Russia Today have reported that a jury in Dallas has sentenced a neurosurgeon to life in prison after hearing about several cases where he maimed, paralysed or killed his patients. And I'm sure we can talk to Mark about this in a few minutes because, he's been down this road. On Tuesday, Christopher Deutsch, 46, was found guilty of injury to an elderly woman, a first-degree felony in Texas where someone intentionally, knowingly, recklessly or with criminal negligence causes injury to an elderly person. On Monday, Deutsch became the first doctor in Dallas County history to be convicted of a surgery gone wrong. District Attorney Faith Johnston said in a news conference after the sentencing. Now, we're going to be talking to Katrina in a couple of weeks' time regarding what happened in Drogheda Hospital in this surgeon who performed hysterectomies when he didn't need to do it on 100 plus women. And so it doesn't just happen abroad, it's happening over here, and it's still going on. And as I say, it's going to be an interesting interview when we speak to Katrina about that. A bit harrowing, I'm afraid, because Steve, as you said, your wife only watched half the programme before she got upset. She had to switch it off. So for any woman that, it's quite disturbing. But there you go. I mean, at least this guy's been kind of sussed up and found guilty, and he's going to go to jail. So that's the good news. Steve?
Yeah, we just have a couple of updates on a couple of technical things regarding the OYM, the good ship OYM. And again, a big thank you to all of the donations that we get. We don't get many, but we do get enough that makes a difference. Due to a very, very slow boot up speed on the laptop here that we actually use for the sending out the broadcast, we've had to replace the hard drive. The hard drive is failing, so we did replace it with an SSD. Anyone in the techie world there will know what an SSD is, and we'll get very excited like we did when we put it in. Makes a big difference. We also bought a full version of the software that we use as well for Studio 2, so that made me very happy. I'm not doing anything illegal anymore.
But you weren't at the first time. You were trialing the software, weren't you?
I was trialing, yeah. Yes. It was about a 5-year trial version. Anyway, yeah, so we're going to be giving that a test run very, very shortly. Also, headphones. Alan's headphones fell apart here a couple of weeks back, and we're only one ear was working, so he wasn't hearing the whole stereo situation. He was only in mono, so they broke. We had to replace them as well. And as if, I don't know, it's like one thing after another. The Skype PC that we use, that's actually quite problematic at the moment as well. It's acting up. It only powers up when it wants to. For some reason, and because we generally need that one for the guest on Skype and just to keep everything, everything kind of sweet, we're probably going to have to replace that as well. So yeah, that's obviously on the cards sooner rather than later. We also got a few bits for experimenting regarding free energy, internet radio, etc. Videos are up on YouTube. You should go and check them out and see what we've been up to away from the microphones and behind the camera. And we're also going to be we're also going to be guinea pigs and try for ourselves the Spooky 2. We've seen a lot of information in relation to that. We've spoken to some people, and we hope to speak to John White. It is John White, isn't it?
John White, yeah.
John White, yeah. In relation to the Spooky 2. So we're going to try and give that a go as well. And yeah, also in relation to donations, they're covering costs like web hosting, license renewals, internet costs, marketing, PR, and also donations to different groups that we like to be able to help out from time to time, i.e. You're Not Alone charity, etc. So a very big thank you to everyone who donates. You know who you are, and you know your donations keep us on the air, enable us to do stuff that we do and keep the wheels in motion. So again, from both of us, a very, very big thank you to everyone who donates.
Yeah, it makes a big difference, it really does. It keeps us on air and everything else. How's your week, Steve?
Yeah, my week's fine. I just have a couple of just two things. One is something that I came across a couple of days ago. Ginger. Not the people, not the hair colour.
Not the cat.
Not the cat either. No, ginger. The little, hair. Is it a herb? Is it a vegetable? Is it a I don't know. I actually don't know what it is. But ginger has great bioactive compounds, it says, that can fight off leukemia, ovarian cancer, prostate cancer, colon cancer. It can also prevent blood clotting, reduce the pain and swelling and arthritis, which will be very beneficial to anyone who suffers with that. Lowers risk of heart disease, and they say that fresh ginger has more compounds like vitamin B6, vitamin C, calcium, magnesium, potassium, phosphorus, and sulfur. And it is kind of recommended that if you can get your hands on the fresh ginger, you should be using about 100 grams per day. Personally speaking, I think 100 grams per day is a little bit excessive. But according to the research that I've seen, not my personal research, but other people's research, that they are saying it is very beneficial. We've heard this before, and maybe Mark might be able to give us a one-on-one on the likes of ginger and all other things as well, and we can find out the benefits. The only other thing that kind of cropped up a couple of days ago, after I had reason in work to get my mugshot taken for an identity card for the workplace, and when I seen the end result,
do they not know who you are?
No, they don't. It's like, who are you?
Who are you?
Yeah, so I had to get my picture taken anyway, and it went on this little card. And when I was looking at the card, and you know, like when you get up in the morning and you're doing your morning routine, you're having a wash and a shave, and you know, brushing the teeth and all this carry on. And sometimes you'll probably glance at yourself and go, yeah, okay, yeah, you know, we're not looking too bad this morning. Yeah. But when I got the card back and I'm looking at the card and going, Jesus, where's my hair? I couldn't see it.
Why didn't you Photoshop it first and then give it to them?
Do you know, I should have put a little bit of hair on myself. But no, I couldn't see the hair, and I'm going, Jesus Christ, is it that bad? But anyway.
I hate to tell you, mate, but you're getting older.
You don't need to tell me. Yeah. And no matter how old I get, you'll still be older.
I know. You'll never catch up with me.
But anyway, castor oil. We heard about this a couple of months back, and it's something that I'm gonna give it a go just for the hell of it. I've nothing to lose, put it that way. So castor oil is supposed to be very good for hair regrowth, or possibly thickening what you already have. It's not available as in other countries. You can't get it in your local Tesco or Dunn stores or whatever. You see, we can only get it in the chemist, and a lot of chemists don't carry it, but they can order it. If anyone listening has already tried it, and you know, maybe it's worked for you, maybe it hasn't, just let us know in the chat room, or you know, drop us an email or something. But yeah, I'm going to give that a go. As I say, I've nothing to lose, and if it works, it works. Hey.
If it works, I'll be buying a box of it.
Yeah, I bet you will. Yeah. Right, anyway, how's your week?
Right, okay, well, before we bring Mark in, just a couple of things. Yesterday, I was down at the Open Mind Conference down in Waterford. A great setup. Trevor and the team did a great job down there, very professional, very well organised, and it was packed, loads of people. It's on again, well, it was on again today. It was over 2 days, Saturday and Sunday. Unfortunately, I couldn't stay over. I just went down for the day yesterday. And there was a number of speakers there. Ben Gilroy was down there, Ian Crane, Mark Delvin, the Ubuntu group was down there. And I met up with people with, like Danielle Laverty. Danielle's been on the show. Met Danielle down there. PJ from the Anti-Vision Task Force. I also met Judith, a lady called Judith Berry Baker, who was the girlfriend of Lee Harvey Oswald during the JFK assassination, and I had a word with Judith about coming on the show. So she has my card, and we'll be hopefully getting her on sometime. And she actually lives in Europe now. I won't say where. She lives in Europe under an assumed name, because apparently they're still kind of, you know, not happy with her. So that was very interesting. Again, as I say, a great show. Great speakers. There's a couple of people on there that we definitely need to get on the show. There was a speaker there called Mark Delvin, who was a radio DJ in London, I believe, because his name is familiar. When I used to live in London and have the radio on, I'm sure I remember hearing his name. I don't know whether it was Capital Radio that he was on, but he had some great information, and he had documented proof that Ireland is a company. Ireland Republic of is actually a business. It's a registered business, and the registered address is in New York. And Stormont, up in Northern Ireland, is registered as a business in Kildare Street. So it's amazing when you, and a lot more, there's a load of list of other countries that are all registered businesses, which is phenomenal. So again, we'll get Mark on, try and get Mark on. I did send him an email and asked him to invite him onto the show. and to talk to us about this and about the Hollywood and about the control that Hollywood have. So he has a lot of good information there, so we'll get Mark on. The other people that we're going to be, we've asked to come on the show as well, we have to get it organised, was a group called the Ubuntu Group. Michael Tellinger. Now, Michael's been on the show. He was on a few years ago. And Michael has started the Ubuntu Group, and it's a bit of an advanced way of doing time banking. And they're getting organised over here. They have a 54-acre farm in Tipperary, I believe, and they're really getting organised. So we're going to try and organise getting the Ubuntu team on to tell us all about it, because it's a good project. Again, people don't have money, but they have time and they have skills. So that's the plan there. Now, and the last thing before we get Mark on is the YouTube. We put up the videos on YouTube, and we don't mind people commenting on the videos on YouTube. We don't lock it down. We leave it open to let people have their say. But when you're somebody who comes on and doesn't actually have anything constructive to say and just uses language and insults, it's going to get deleted. So, can I just say, don't waste your time. If you're planning to do that, don't waste your time. All the comments I see that come in on YouTube, and as soon as I see them, I delete them. Okay, so if it's constructive, if it's interesting, or it doesn't use language much, if the language is in relation to what you want to say, then, fair enough, that's okay. But if it's just purely attack and language, and it's nothing really of interest, it's going to be deleted. So I don't know why these people waste their time. It's just unbelievable. But there you go. So, right, we're going to get our guest on. Now, before we get Mark on, Steve's going to give us a bio on Mark's background.
Okay, tonight our guest is Mr. Mark Moxom. Mark is a consultant, a strategist, a professional dot joiner, a futurist, a multiple best-selling author, publisher, lifetime entrepreneur, natural health strategist, 40 years being doctor-free, and he's the brains behind the highly effective snack box diet. Mark works across a diverse range of fields from technology, natural health, retail, service and publish, and also media marketing has exposed him to much of what is going on in the forefront of the industry and commerce. He does not like to see people being walked over by bad medicine, business or poorly formulated statutes in the hands of the powers that be, and he will endeavour to uphold the rights of those who are whenever possible.
Brilliant. Good evening, Mark. How are you doing?
Wonderful, thank you, gentlemen. Wonderful. Can't complain at all.
Brilliant stuff. Thanks a lot for coming on, Mark. Now, as I said, the last time you were on with Simon, and we weren't aware that you were actually involved in the health side, and your website has lots of information on that. And the main thing that you said, which was very interesting, was that you hadn't been to a doctor for 40 years after the way they treated your mother, I believe. Do you want to...
That's right, yeah.
Do you want to add, is there any more that you want to add to your bio? And do you want to tell our listeners why that is, what happened to your mother, and why you decided to take things on your own responsibility regarding your health?
Well, simply because my mother was very badly treated. I mean, she needed a hip operation. So she went private, and you often think going private is going to get you the best doctors, the best treatment, and all that sort of palaver that goes with it. But unfortunately, that wasn't the case. She came out, and she was in pain almost from the first day out. But after a few days, the pain got worse and worse and worse, and by the end of, I guess, the first week, it got to the point where she just couldn't take it any longer. And so, rather than call an ambulance, my dad bundled her in the car, and he said, "You've got to come too." I think I was about 14 at the time. So we got back, we got in the car, and we went off down to Wellesley Hospital, which is in Southend, near where my parents used to live. And Mum was in the car, in the passenger seat, obviously not driving. The seat was raked right the way back because she couldn't take any sitting up or anything like that. Anything other than flat out was just too painful. She was writhing in pain, and I was looking at my mum thinking very simply that she'd put her trust and her faith in doctors, and she expected to go into hospital not feeling good and coming out of hospital and eventually feeling better, but she was actually feeling totally worse. It turned out that back then, one of the things they did after they'd done that type of hip replacement was put a stainless steel cage around the muscles to hold them back onto the bone. This had come away. That had allowed the bone to come loose, and the top of her leg bone was up by her waist. So it had gone up a good 8 inches. And that was why she was in such pain.
How old was your mother at the time, Mark?
I suppose she was mid-50s, I would think.
So very young, young.
Yes, very young in comparison.
Yeah.
And I mean, the sad thing is that bad operation and the bad treatment that she got put her off having another hip done until it was, a bit too far gone, to be frank. And any time that she was, due to have any type of operation, she was always scared about having it. Put me off doctors for life, and I'm glad it did in a way.
Yeah. Okay. And, what happened? Eventually, what happened? I mean, obviously, did your mother pass away from it, or? No,
when she obviously lived on. They redid the operation. A different surgeon redid the operation. Thankfully, it more or less worked, but there was still a fair bit of damage that was done. And that was the thing that set her up for a whole host of different health problems that sort of came on throughout the rest of her life, including Parkinson's and a few other not so very nice things that she had to deal with.
That's not nice at all. So, obviously, you as a young lad, seeing this happening to your mother, and something was obviously triggered in your mind, and you thought, I'm not going to go near these witch doctors. So what was your journey? What started it off, and what did you start doing?
Well, the first thing I realised I needed to do was find out how the body works. If you don't know how the machine works, when it breaks down, you can't fix it. Mm. But the flip side of that is it's far better to do preventative maintenance than it is to fix things when they go wrong.
True.
Having an engineering background from an interest in engineering from a very young age, and being around engineers, I knew that was the best way to go. So that started me on I won't say a great search, but a low-key search on how the body works, how to keep it in top condition, how to make sure you don't get ill, how really to look after the body in a way that it will always pay you back 100-fold.
Mm. Okay. So what was your first step? How did you start off in your research?
Well, the first step is really just finding out how the body works.
Okay.
Back then, the only thing you had was the library and that sort of thing. And bear in mind, I was only a teenager at the time, and when you're a teenager, you've got a virtually indestructible body anyway. A lot of things can go wrong and you probably won't notice, especially with all the hormones going on and so forth.
Mm. Okay.
So
yeah,
the real search for looking after the body, finding out how it works, didn't really come until I was a fair bit older, and I started to notice things that weren't working as well as they used to, and it was then that I got interested in it. And also, being around people that were, slowly falling apart, and seeing that the conventional medical profession wasn't helping them, it makes you start to look for alternative answers that really work. And again, I go back to my engineering side. If you're an engineer and you've been asked by somebody to fix a problem, if you don't fix the problem, then you don't get paid. Yet, in the medical profession, most of it anyway, it's almost accepted that it may not work. Are we going to try this or we're going to try that? And I found that very odd that, they're dealing with something that is probably the most precious thing that any of us have, which is our life and our health. But everything was just a try this or a try that.
Yeah.
I think one of the things I find quite strange is that if you train, let's say you train as a mechanic, you do your apprenticeship and you get your NVQs or whatever they're called now. Eventually you might go and work for a garage, and then you might want to set up in your own business. So you train and then you go to work and then you might go into business. And you look at many other professions that do that. But doctors and dentists, even solicitors and so forth, they don't go into business, they go into practice. So, that's fine, but who are they practicing on?
Mm. Well, the word practice in itself is a bit worrying, isn't it?
Mm.
The fact it's called a practice. I mean, I wouldn't want
exactly
a doctor
point,
practicing on me. I'd like him to know what he's
that's
doing.
Exactly the point.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's something I've always found a bit odd. Why do we allow people to practice on us when they should be fixing the problem?
And the thing is that, at a certain level, they're not responsible. I mean, as you say, they try this and try that. And when you're under the medical profession, unless it's quite severe, like we read out about the neurosurgeon in Dallas, they kind of get away with it. And that during the week, while myself and Mark were emailing each other, it was a video was sent off to us by a lady who works for the NHS, and it was a video presentation. And she was talking about how so many people are dying on the NHS because, especially if you're old, and they want your property details and stuff like that. It was quite harrowing. And there's a massive increase in dementia over there in the UK as well. So, what did you think of that when you seen the video?
Frankly, I wasn't surprised. I've been in hospital visiting people many, many times. And, you see other people in the beds opposite, and you can, to my mind, they're being neglected. And I've got a big thing about making sure you're hydrated. And one of the things that, we should all look at is the colour of our piss. If it doesn't look like a good lager, there's something wrong with it.
Right, okay.
And,
yeah.
Yeah, but you'll notice that for the convenience of the nursing staff, I think personally, that they very quickly put people on catheters. So they don't have to get up and go to the toilet and so on.
Yeah.
Now, in some cases, obviously, that's needed because, they may not be able to walk very easily. They may need bed rest or whatever it happens to be.
Yeah.
But in many cases, it's for the convenience of the nursing staff and nobody else. And then you look at the bags that the urine drains into, and instead of being a nice sort of golden colour, it's a browny red colour.
Yeah.
Which, to my mind, says straight away they're not having enough liquid.
Now, do you think...
Especially when you look...
Sorry, go ahead.
Well, especially when you look at the sort of the quantity that goes into the bags over a period of time. A normal body, when it functions, should be producing a lot more urine than you'll see people giving away in hospital, as it were.
So what about the likes of, we talk about the difference, the pH balance in our bodies, and we have to be more alkaline than acid. And one of the things you can do is get a pH strip, and when you pee on that first thing in the morning, you can actually compare your alkaline level on your body. Now, you don't want to be too alkaline, but you don't want to be too acid either. And if you're going to the pee and it's really, really dark, to me, that says that that's really acid. You want to do something. But as you said, if it just looks like a kind of pint of lager colour, that should be fair enough.
Normally, yeah. I mean, you can find on the internet quite a few, I'll say, comparison sites for pee. They've got pictures of what good and bad pee looks like with regards to colour. But how many people actually check their pee in the morning? Most people do it in the dark, I should think.
Well, it's funny you should say that, because this is the ideal time, as we're talking about that, to bring in this. We said it last week on the show, but we will say it again for people who actually haven't heard last week's show. Steve, do you want to read out that article or that email that we got from a listener in Australia? And this is an email that he sent us in.
Yeah, this is the email as it reads. He said he would like to mention something else if you don't mind. This is continue on from the previous part of the email. I was bleeding really bad when I went to the loo, and my urine was so thick and dark. He said the colour was darker than raspberry cordial before you add water. So this is what he did to get rid of it without a doctor's help. He took one lemon, he squeezed it into a large mug, add about half a teaspoon of sodium bicarb. Now, he said, don't use anything else or you will kill yourself. He said, mix the bicarb in, it will bubble up, keep stirring until the bubbles have gone, then top up with water. till just under halfway up the mug. Within 20 minutes, the pain went away, he said, and after 3 hours, all pain was gone. He did this for a couple of days, and his urine returned to normal. It was nice and clear. He then went to the doctors with a urine sample just to have a test, and the doctor came back and said, I don't know what you're talking about, there's nothing wrong with you. Your results came back negative. He says he now has a lemon and the sodium bicarb every day.
So what's your take on sodium bicarb? Because we do kind of recommend and talk about it a lot. Have you come across it? Do you know people who have used it? Do you use it yourself?
Oh yeah, I use it myself if the need arises. I think we've got to go straight through to the cause of the problem. You know, what was the cause of this gentleman's problem? And straight away, if you're peeing a dark, a blood-lined or blood-stained urine, then you've got some sort of infection, clearly. Now, most UI infections are bacterial, although you can get other types of infection in there. You can get all sorts of different bacterial, viral, and the name escapes me again.
I reckon it was cystitis.
Could well be.
Okay, just a guess.
Could well be.
Yeah,
but there's normally a bacterial content to it, and it may not have been in the bladder. It might have been further up in the urinary tract. So the fact that you've got that, from whatever cause, it will often turn your urine quite acidic. So simply by having bicarb in water, then that's going to reduce the acidity, which will almost straight away reduce the pain and so forth that an acid urine will have, particularly when you're trying to pass it. So that's the first thing. That's how we got rid of the pain. Now the other thing is that most of the bacteria, viruses, and so forth that are harmful to the body love an acidic environment. Most of the good stuff likes a slightly alkaline environment. So as soon as you alkalinize whatever part of the body you're treating, then you're making that a very uncomfortable place for these nasty bacteria. So they're going to die off or find somewhere else to live. So that's how you get rid of the infection. And that works in, if you like, that's the process for most of the best ways of bringing healing about wherever it may be in the body.
Excellent. Well, that's, and we talk about that, and we did a video actually on YouTube. I drink green tea, so I used the strips, and I dipped the green tea in unfluoridated water. It was spring water, and it was like a 6.2, and then I actually put a little bit of bicarb in, and I went up to about 8, which shows people how to alkalinize your tea or your water and everything else.
Yeah.
Tell me something, Mark. Do you see people with a symptom and you can kind of go, yeah, I know what that symptom is, I know what the cause is, and if they did X, Y, and Z, that would sort that out?
Far too often. But the real sad thing is that they don't want to listen.
Yeah.
And I'm not a medical doctor. I don't want to be a medical doctor. I want the freedom to be able to treat myself the way I want to treat myself, and to be able to speak my mind when I'm talking with other people. A medical doctor can't do that. They are so bound up by, permissible treatments. If they put a foot wrong, then they risk, at the extreme, getting struck off. So that's why you'll find that those doctors that do want to go the empirical way, rather than the allopathic way, which is using drugs, if they want to go the empirical way, then 9 times out of 10, they'll either take a back seat on their allopathic medical side, or they'll leave the professional together and set up as some sort of health healer.
Okay.
I've got a lot of respect for those people, actually.
Yeah, well, we've had doctors on here who are open-minded, like Dr. Emma LeBeau and Dr. Lorraine Day. And Dr. Lorraine Day said that they're only good for 2 things, writing prescriptions and taking body parts out. And she was an ex-trauma surgeon, so she knows what she's talking about. The main, today, there seems to be a massive increase in health problems. I mean, there's a program on Channel 4, as you know, called Embarrassing Bodies. And the amount of people that have all kinds of health symptoms, and obviously the big one is like, cancer. and as I say, dementia as well seems to be getting a hold of people as well. Obviously, we know the food is poisoned. You know, you have your aspartame, your MSG, and your fluoride, and everything else that they're putting in there. Is there anything that you're seeing over the years that has happened in the food chain, or anything that you can kind of tell us about or warn us about? Stuff, especially certain foods or something that you just say, don't be going near this stuff.
Yeah, I think any manufactured food, really. That's the most readily available of the poorest level of nutrition and poison that we take by mouth. When you think about the whole purpose of these large companies that make food is to make profit. The fact that they produce something that people eat is a mere inconvenience as far as they're concerned. Simply because they've got to adhere to some of the health regulations to make sure there are no, or not too many, poisonous elements in the food, that it's not overly charged with bacteria, viruses or other contaminants. So their bottom line is not there to provide good nutritious food. Their bottom line is to make more money.
Yeah.
So that's the first thing. Now, as part of that, they will go to the cheapest ingredients they can find. And most of the time, those are bulk fillers, and things like sort of the more cheaper ingredients, such as wheat and sugar, grains, anything that they can use that will provide some sort of bulk to the food. The real ingredients, if they've got any in, are, if it's, let's say there's a meat pie they're making, then they'll use the cheapest they can get away with. And then on top of all that, to make it taste and look slightly appetizing, they'll have to use all sorts of flavorings and other chemicals just to make it edible. So you've got poor ingredients to start with, layered over with all sorts of nasty additives. Oh yes, we can't forget the preservatives, because they want this stuff to last a long time on the shelf. And if you're in the States, it's not so prevalent in the UK or in Europe, thankfully, but it's coming. They're using a lot more GMO-based products as well.
Yeah, somebody said to me that they seen a product advertised. No, I'll tell you what it was. It was my partner was watching the program, and there was this individual in the States, and they had a cheese sandwich, and it was based on something like it was like fake cheese, but imitation cheese. Imitation, and you're thinking, why can't it just be cheese? I mean, imitation cheese, and they're eating this stuff. I mean, Steve, you mentioned that about the plastic cheese. Do you want to mention that again?
Well, yeah, I mean, we tried some cheese. My daughter tried this particular cheese there a while back. It was vegan cheese. Well, it wasn't really cheese, but she's kind of looking into, she's a teenager, and as most teenagers do, they don't know what road they want to be on in life, so she's looking at all these different things, and she was looking at this particular vegan cheese, and we tried it. We all tried it, and I just read the packet. It didn't really taste like much. It tasted kind of plastic, and there was a lot of ingredients in it. And then the one that was the real kicker was cheese flavour. So I'm thinking they make this. It's supposed to be cheese, but obviously it doesn't taste like cheese. So then they have to add flavour to make it taste like cheese. And if they didn't add the flavour, it probably would have been just plastic. Ridiculous. Yeah.
Oh, there are all sorts of rather nasty chemicals particularly actually in food marketed towards vegetarians and vegans.
Yeah.
And the sad thing is that unless they are really on their game, if they're not taking their diet seriously and making sure they're getting as much good nutrition as they can, if they're being lazy, then they are going to end up the sickest people on the planet. Well, there's a big difference. I've got quite a few friends who are vegetarian, none who are vegan, and I'm thankful for that, because I would be worried for them. Yeah. But there's a difference between the friends who are really looking at, making sure they make up for what they don't get if they were eating meat, making sure that they get as broad a range as possible of all the nutrients they need, and those who are just, I'll call them lazy vegetarians. They're just going the easy route. They'll eat lots of bread. They'll eat lots of pasta. They're really poisoning themselves. They're not taking responsibility for their health.
Well, let's just clarify that. Before we went live, we had a little bit of a chat, and we were talking about the food and everything else. Now, a lot of people are financially struggling at the moment. I mean, really on the breadline. They are struggling. They're not even, they're not living. They're surviving just about. And we all know that it's cheaper to eat unhealthy than it is healthy. And, you know, I'd love to be able to go down and get organic vegetables, juice every day, and it'd be fantastic. But I can't afford to do that, and Steve can't, and a lot of people can't. So we are forced to go down to the Aldis and buy certain processed foods. Now, we obviously been aware of about the, you know, the aspartames and all that kind of stuff, and try and eat as healthy as we can in the budget that we have, and that's half the battle. And I have heard, you know, people talking about health and, you know, people should do this and buy that. But when you start looking at the cost of these things, you just think, well, that's okay if you're, you know, Jamie Oliver will say, you know, you buy this and buy that and eat healthy and get this herb that grows 2 weeks every year in the Himalayas and all this kind of stuff. And it's just not practical, you know. So from your point of view, what do you suggest to our listeners where the budget is just really, really tight? What would you say? I mean, sometimes you might say, well, look, you might be able to afford this, but don't buy this. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, we've all got to, you know, we've only got so much money. No matter where or what level of income we've only got so much money to spend on food. You know, I've been in a place where I've had very little money to live on. The only way I managed to keep healthy in that situation, and it's something I've carried with me all the way through as well, is that I buy for quality rather than quantity. You can actually buy a lot less food than you might think you need to buy in order to nourish your body. The big problem that we've had in the West in particular is we've got used to having the big piles of stuff on the plate, most of which is, you know, doesn't have the nutrients the body's crying out for.
Yeah.
Now, I'll give people a heads up here. There's a book called Primal Tightwad by a lady called Carolyn Rush, I think, which, if you like, she was one of these people who doesn't like to spend more money than she should do on food. In fact, she gets a real kick out of trying to live as cheaply as possible. And she was challenged in exactly the same way, you know. In fact, she challenged a friend of ours in exactly the same way, who's a proponent of primal or paleo living, if you like, low carb type of living. And she said exactly the same thing as you. You know, she said, well, no, I can't afford to eat your type of diet because I've got to go and have grass-fed this, organic that. I just can't afford that, and I don't want to afford that. And Nora turned around to her and said, well, I think, knowing you, the way you don't like to waste money, I think you could find out how to do this diet and still not go over budget. So her friend looked at her and said, you know, I'm going to take that challenge. Anyway, a few weeks went past, and that turned into a few months. When they started seriously talking about it again, Caroline had come up with a way, in her own inimitable way, of finding out how to live cheaply but with good quality food. Now, she also found out, as part of eating that way, that eventually, once your body realizes it's getting the nutrition it needs without the vast quantities, that your appetite goes down, so you don't get as hungry as you used to, yet you're still giving the body all the nutrients, all the vitamins, all the minerals it requires in order to function properly. And the fact that you've reduced the quantity of what you eat also means that your digestive, the time for digestion, if you like, is reduced. So the energy that the body would waste on digesting too much food, it can then use on repair and renewal. So, you know, you can actually eat a decent quality diet without spending too much money. Now, if you like, the last part of this tale is that Caroline continued doing this for about a year. In fact, she's still on it as far as I know. And she actually ended up saving $1,500 in this case on what she spent the previous year. So she was actually living cheaper, or paying less money for a much better quality diet.
That's good. Steve's on the website there. And it's something I want to add, and it just come back to me when you were talking about that. And you might agree with this or confirm this, but I was watching a program, and they said what they did was they got 50 army cadets, and they divided them down the middle, 25 each side, and they cooked the identical meal for the 50 cadets, but they actually made one meal into a soup and the other meal into food, just a normal meal with the food, and they gave the 50 cadets the food. And what came out at the end of it was that the cadets that had the dinner that was in a liquid form, in a soup, it turned out that it was more filling, and they weren't as hungry as the guys who had the dinner. And because the actual meal was in a liquid form, it used less water in the body to actually process the food, where if you eat solid food, water is used and you feel more dehydrated, you have to drink more.
That's true, yeah.
So they found that if you were using, having organic soups, say, that you'd feel a lot fuller, and you wouldn't be as hungry sooner. And it's, as I say, it takes up less fluids in your body. And that was an interesting experiment. And that kind of ties into what you said there.
Yeah, it does indeed. I mean, soup is probably one of the most convenient ways of getting good nutrition, particularly if you make it yourself. I mean, typically we'll have a joint most Sundays, or at least once over the weekend. But that joint will continue to feed us probably until Thursday.
Yeah.
And, the bones get boiled to make broth and all sorts of things. Nothing goes to waste. And in fact, because you cook once on a Sunday, you've then got at least 2 or 3 meals that you've just got to warm up. If you've got a nice joint of lamb or something like that, yeah, it can be expensive to buy it. But when you spread it out over all the meals it makes, it actually ends up to be quite cheap. You don't have to have lamb every week, obviously. You can have the cheaper meats like chicken and so on. It's really buying sensibly. And what you're not wasting on things like, fizzy pop and lemonade and all of those types of drinks that do you no good whatsoever, you can put that into decent nutrition. The biggest problem that...
Yeah, go
sorry,
ahead.
Carry on.
No, go ahead.
The biggest problem that I find nowadays is that most people either don't know how to cook, don't want to cook, think they're too busy to cook, yet, when you really calculate how long it takes to, cook anything really, if you do it sensibly, if you cook several meals at once, for instance, like the joint I just mentioned, then you can actually end up spending less time in the kitchen than you would be if you had to, eat, I'll say, convenience foods or, manufactured food.
Yeah, I think you're reading my mind, Mark, because I just was going to say there before you said it. The other big problem is knowing how to cook, because I did try Steve's a vegetarian, and I tried going on the vegetarian diet for 2 weeks. I gave it 2 weeks, and I just found the food bland. Now, I was the one cooking it, so I'm blaming myself. So, but I'm not a chef. I'll burn a salad. I'm good at heating up food. But I do most of the cooking for my family, funny enough. And they don't give out, because if they do, I threaten them. But I'd love to learn more about the cooking. Now, I know, right, that you can say you have a chicken, right?
Yeah.
And you can get the carcass of the chicken, put it in a big pan, and you can put loads of fruit and veg in it, or whatever, veg, and you can have a soup from it and stuff like that. I know you can do that, but I don't know how to do it. And my main concern, and I know people say, well, I'm going to cook that up and I won't have a day, I'll put it in a bowl, put it in the freezer and take it out and have that tomorrow and all that. I am so cautious of food poisoning. I really, really am. And I am the type of person to say, I'd rather not eat that with the risk, because I don't know enough about how food works from a food poisoning point of view. So to not risk it, I'd rather throw it out than actually try, do something with it, and then and then you kind of say, well, does it last for 2 days or 3 days, or is it 4 days? The food, I don't know enough about food, so just to play it safe for me and the family, I normally cook from fresh, or when it comes out of the box, if it's some of it is processed, it'll be there, and then I'll come out of the freezer because it's processed. But I've heard from ambulance men that was said to us that because of all the processed food that people eat these days, if they find a dead body, they don't worry about it smelling and everything else, because people eat so much processed food, it'll probably stay there for 4 days before anything starts happening.
Yeah, and they are so full of preservatives, they're almost self-embalmed.
That's right. So what do you do? What can we do on a low budget? I know you mentioned the book there, which is great. We're going to get the details for that and put it out there. But give us some pointers. Like, obviously, you're going to say to people, don't touch aspartame, don't touch MSG, don't touch fluoride. What other stuff that we need to be aware of?
Well, I think that the biggest and the most insidious one is the GMO products. Now, GMOs appear in the most unlikely places. For instance, we're often encouraged to go and get vitamins and mineral supplements and that type of thing. Now, you'll find a lot of them say, sort of natural product grown or produced from natural products. What they don't tell you is that quite often some of those ingredients are grown on a GMO-based medium. So they actually absorb some of the genetically modified material into the vitamin or the tablet that you're taking, into the ingredients of it. And then you unwittingly, thinking you're having this lovely naturally based vitamin or mineral supplement, are having GMOs, when the very thing that was the very thing you might be trying to avoid.
Yeah.
So you have to look at turn the packet or the box or whatever it is around and see what's on it. The other thing I don't eat at all is the Norwegian and the Scottish salmon. Simply because although it's dirt cheap and you think it could be quite tasty, when you look at the way that those fish are farmed, they are filled on a daily basis with all sorts of different medicines to keep away the pests and the viruses and everything else. And because the nets are fixed, you've just got a complete mountain of fish poo build up in the water below them. Now, you might think that's not a bad thing because it's in water, but that fish poo, like any fecal matter, is a lovely place for bacteria and all sorts of other nasties to grow and thrive. So, I stay away from Scottish and Norwegian salmon, especially Norwegian salmon. If you want to have fish, then the smaller the fish, the better.
It was said to me, Mark, and I don't know how true this is, but it was said to me by somebody I know who went out with a chap who worked in a fish and chip shop, and he said cod are not the best fish to have because cod are bottom feeders and they eat the rubbish. And obviously, if that's the case, then we're taking on what they're eating.
Yeah. Well, the thing you've got to remember is that most of the things like mercury, medicines that you often find in river courses and so on now, all of the treatments that are used regularly end up at some point in the sea. So the closer the fish is to the shore, the more likely it is to be feeding on whatever its food happens to be that contains things like mercury and so on. So you really want to look for deep sea fish. Now, if you're looking for deep sea fish, then you've got to try and get those that are obviously within budget and that are caught humanely, ideally, and aren't too big, simply because that the big fish eat the little fish, and the littler fish eat the smaller fish, and the smaller fish eat the tiny fish. And each of those, every time that one eats another, all of the crap that the one it's eating has got in it is absorbed into their body. So as you go up the size of fish, the level of contaminants goes up as well. So things like sardines and all of the small fish you find in both in the fishmongers and quite often in little metal tins, they're a much better type of fish to eat. Firstly, from the point of view of they're not so contaminated, but also they're often quite oily.
So you're talking about
type of oil.
Well, probably like sardines. Would they be okay?
Yeah. Sardines are probably one of the safest fish you can eat on the whole.
Okay, because I don't mind the old sardine sandwich now and again. Steve, just changing subject from fish. Soya, Steve. I know you've been looking into the soya thing. Where are you with that at the moment? Have you given it up? Are you still taking it, or what's?
I don't really eat a lot of soya, to be totally honest. I mean, some of the stuff we used to buy was kind of soya based, but we don't use that anymore. And the last hurdle to get over is the soya milk. Now we because a lot of my kids, Mark, when they were kind of old enough to they were weaned off the breast, and when they went on to milk, then they couldn't take to cow's milk. It made them constipated, so we switched to soya milk, and that's what they've been reared on. And because we've seen a lot of the information in relation to soya, I'm trying to get them off that onto either A, almond milk, or B, rice milk. And we're having some success with the almond milk. But there's one or two. Well, there's two stragglers. One has switched, no problem. The other two are kind of digging their heels in. They love their soya milk. But even with that, I mean, even in relation to the almond milk, soya milk, rice milk, I've actually gone to, when you'll see them in the supermarket, you'll see rice milk. I'll actually get onto the manufacturers, and I wanted to know, give me some information about your rice milk. How much water is actually in it, and this water, is it a fluoridated source or a non-fluoridated source? And that's where my headspace has been most of the time. When you buy it, but then you want to know exactly what's the makeup of the product. Yeah. And sometimes, I've written to a couple of places over in the UK in relation to almond milk, and they come back and says, oh yeah, it's from a Thames water or Tyneside water, whatever the water happened to be, and they couldn't tell me whether it was fluoridated or non-fluoridated. So then I'd get on to the water company and I'd ask them, and they'd say, oh yeah, it's fluoridated, so therefore that product's out the window. I think the last one we used was someplace, I think it was a kind of, was it Norwegian water? That's where the water supply was from anyway.
Oh, yeah. Well, you said that if you see ingredients and you can't pronounce them, chances are they're not good for you.
If you can't pronounce it, I walk away.
Yes, that's pretty very sensible advice. Coming back to almond milk, it's fairly easy to make at home.
Is it?
It's basically all you're doing is you're soaking almonds in water for a night or two, and then the fat out of the almonds will float on top, and you drain it off, and you use a combination of the two to make your milk up. There's plenty of websites that have got how to make almond milk or coconut milk or all those sorts of things at home. Yeah, just Google it.
But it goes back to something you said very early on in this conversation, Mark, about laziness.
And it's all about energy, isn't it?
It is about energy.
It's about energy. And about
but I'll agree with you. It's about energy, but when you've got kids, there's nothing nicer than knowing you're not only giving your kids the best stuff that you can give them, but you're making it yourself. There's a huge pat on the back feel that you give yourself when you do things like that for those you love.
I think people would start off with the right intention, but over a period of time, due to the stresses of life and everything else, you just kind of go, I can't be bothered doing this anymore. And that's probably the fight that we have. Again, the foods that we eat take our energy. And that's why you have the likes of couch potatoes and stuff like that, because the food we're eating is not good for us. It's affecting our energy, and we want to do less and less. And the government know this. The food manufacturers know this. I mean, this is the whole kind of scheme of the elites. They know that the food is taking our energy and stopping us from getting up. And that's probably why we don't protest as much as we do, because all the foods we're getting are just kind of zapping our energy. And we have to kind of move away from that, So, but we have loads of questions come in for you, Mark. So I'm going to pass you over to Steve, and Steve's going to go through the questions with you. Steve.
Okay. Right, where will I start? There was a couple of questions come in from Karen early on when you were talking about Well, actually, it doesn't matter what we were talking about, but Karen wants to know. She says, abdominal scar tissue and bowel obstructions. She wants to know if you know any way to eliminate them without surgery. Now, I actually replied to Karen and I just said to her, I pointed her in the direction of serapeptase. I've been turned on to that a long time ago, and I've used it, and they do say that the serapeptase is supposed to be allegedly very beneficial for internal scar tissue. It's supposed to remove. I don't know whether it actually does or doesn't, but abdominal scar tissue, bowel obstructions, Mark.
Yeah, I mean, I was actually going to come on to a few things a bit later on, different cures that, are my favourite go-tos, if I can put it that way. But let me just go back a few steps. I mean, years ago, I suppose it's going to be back in the late 80s, I started looking into oxidative therapies. And the big thing at the time was hydrogen peroxide. Yeah. And, the science seemed okay to me, so I tried it, and I found it very, very beneficial. Just using the drops in the water a few times a day, and that dealt with a lot of underlying things for me. One of the big things it cleared out a load of the poisons and the crap that, in a literal sense, in some cases, that my body had built up over the years. But coming back to the question, what's good for scar tissue? What you really want is you want that tissue to grow back normally again. Now, what causes the scar? It's some sort of physical trauma. You've had a tear or a cut or whatever it happens to be. You often get scar tissues, for instance, after ulcers or any type of how can I put that, physical damage to any part of the body that can be in soft tissue or wherever. The best thing you can do is make sure you are properly nourished, that you're not causing your body to have to use its energy digesting bad food. So it's got energy left over for doing the repair and the renewal. That's the first thing. Targeting scar tissue, that's quite a difficult thing, but things like MSM, GMSO and those sort of things are probably quite good for that type of scar tissue or any type of internal problem like that.
Sorry, can you just say those again, Mark? MSM yeah. Or N?
And M for mother.
Yeah.
And GMSO. That's like a naturally occurring sulfur.
Okay.
Now you can get that online. It shouldn't be more than about £8 or £9 for a pound or so as a powder. You can get it as pills. You can get it as compressed. What do we call them? Torpedo-shaped pills as well.
Okay, and I'm guessing you just obviously ingest these, yeah?
Yes, yeah, they're just something. It's basically you take it as a supplement.
Okay.
So the brilliant thing about MSM is it actually works on the membranes. If you like, it makes the membranes more able to pass fluids through. So it makes them more efficient in what they're doing. But it works on a whole other range of levels, a whole other different levels as well.
And you've tried these yourself, you say, have you?
Oh yeah, MSM is brilliant. I use MSM if I'm feeling at all tight muscularly. If you get a headache, I've got MSM that's mixed in with coconut oil and water, and a bit of colloidal silver to keep it fresh and bacteria free, just in a squeezy like a washing up type of bottle. And if I've got a headache or one coming on, because I'm like you guys, a bit thin on top, as you can see from the image, I just rub that on the top of my head and the back of my neck, and within 2 or 3 minutes the headache's gone.
Okay. Now just stepping back a second, you did mention colloidal silver. We actually spoke about colloidal silver and have done many times on the show. And a recent guest said that it is fantastic when applied topically, but when you ingest it, he said that it's completely useless. It just goes straight through you and it's of no benefit at all whatsoever. I'm just wondering, what are your thoughts on that? Because we obviously have seen information to the contrary to say that when it is ingested, it is beneficial.
Yeah, well, I can only speak from experience, and for me it works.
I mean, that's really what it boils down to. If you use it and it works for you, then that's it.
Yeah.
You know, just try it.
And that's the bottom line is for everything as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
From the engineering side, I only want solutions that work.
Yeah.
I don't want hot air. I don't want theory.
You know, you mentioned about the peroxide. You're using the peroxide as like a bleach. Would that be correct? No, I don't want to say it is a bleach, but the principles of why you're using it it's kind of like similar to MMS. Would that be in the same ballpark? It
does a similar job.
Okay.
It's probably a little bit more potent than MMS. So you have to use it, I'll say, a little bit more cautiously. It can cause more upset stomachs and so forth. But it works in the same way by using the excess oxygen that each of the molecules carry in order to target acidic areas in the body. And those acidic areas nearly always correspond with some sort of viral, bacterial, or other type of infection.
Yeah.
Would this be just the regular hydrogen peroxide that you can buy over the counter in a pharmacy, Mark?
That's a very good question. There are three types of hydrogen peroxide. You've got the one you can get probably in the pharmacy for doing your hair, if you've got enough hair to make blonde.
Yeah.
Normally 9%, but that's got a huge amount of additives in it. You want to steer clear of that. You can get food grade, and you can get medical grade, because it is used in the medical world more often than not for sterilisation. So the one that you can obviously use is food grade, and that's typically used by people who make cheese. So if you've got something like, if you're in an area where homemade cheese or artisan cheese is quite popular, then you can probably ask somebody who makes cheese, on a small batch basis. So if you've got, bespoke cheeses around, if you've got a farmer that does his own cheeses, then they will probably be able to get some for you. Now, the law was changed a little while ago. I think it was in about 2008, I think. You can now only buy 12% hydrogen peroxide. You used to be able to buy, I think it was 32%, which is the one that we always used to get, and then you just dilute it down. However, 12% is good enough because you're going to dilute it down anyway into less than 3% to drink. So, it's literally going to be just a few drops in a glass of water.
Okay, and does it smell?
It's got a slightly metallic smell, and it's got a slightly metallic taste. Okay.
Because obviously with the MMS, the older version of MS, you could actually smell the chlorine.
Yeah.
The chlorine. Although it's not chlorine, it's in the same family as chlorine.
Yeah.
You could smell it.
It smells to us like chlorine. Yeah.
And it wasn't nice at all. That's why I said about the peroxide. It didn't smell. Probably not as bad. Right, we've more questions for you there, Mark. Steve.
Yeah, we do. Chris says, Mark, he's waiting for a hip replacement operation. Is there anything he can do for the pain and lack of mobility? He says he hates taking painkillers and anti-inflammatory medication.
Well, yeah, I mean, one of the best things for dealing with in any type of inflation is actually what you've just mentioned, MMS. Or, better still, CDS, which is the chlorine dioxide in solution.
Say that again. Say that name again, Mark.
CDS, chlorine dioxide in solution.
Okay, and where do you get that, Dave? Can you buy that off the counter?
No, you can make that using MMS.
Okay. Okay.
Right. Have you ever used MMS?
Yeah, no, yeah. I have. We have MMS. We have the two bottles and we mix them to get the. So okay. when I'm saying MMS, I'm talking about the end result as opposed to, the two separate ingredients.
Okay. Well, if you when you mix the two together,
yeah.
Have you noticed that there's like a vapor inside the glass?
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, if you take that vapor and bubble it through water, that gives you CDS.
Okay, I'm not sure how would I do that. Not sure how would you take the vapor?
Oh, there are a couple of videos online by Jim Humble, who is the go-to guy for MMS, and also you've got what's his name, Andreas Kalker, Kalcker. Right. Now he actually used MMS and CDS to cure his arthritis.
Okay, that's interesting. because I know somebody I've been treating with the Pain Genie regarding their arthritis, and she's only 27, which is terrible at that age to have that, and so we might need more than the Pain Genie to treat that. But that's good to know. Right, we'll crack on with the questions there.
Right, we just want to say...
the answer to that one, sorry, I've forgotten.
Yeah, I think Chris would be happy with that answer. Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, okay. And we just want to say, it's chloride and not chlorine in the MMS. Yeah, we are
chloride.
Chloride, yeah. Chloride, yeah.
Chloride. Yeah. Don't smell like chlorine, but it is chloride.
It's chloride, yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's an important difference.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, big time.
Okay, Karen Quinn Tostado in Oregon, in the US of A, wants to know. She says all produce grown outside can't be organic due to chemtrails, and how does he, as in Mark, counteract that?
It's a fair comment. I can't disagree with that. Although the amount of chemicals that you're going to get from a chemtrail is going to be a lot less if you're growing it yourself than what you'll get from a commercial farm-produced vegetable or whatever it happens to be. You can always grow them inside in a greenhouse, and I'm all for people growing their own food. From start to finish that you've got good nutrition.
Yeah, totally. I mean, that's something I'd love to be able to do, and I'd like to do this year if we can, is to start experimenting and again take video footage of. And what I'd be looking at doing is to get 2 or 3 raised beds. Now, raised beds not being the raised beds where they're actually on the ground, but literally they're going to be raised up about 3 feet in a box and about probably a foot deep with soil, and then just have them outside. And because I did have a kind of a mini greenhouse, and I enjoyed going out and maintaining it until one of these bloody hurricanes came along and blew it to hell, and that destroyed the greenhouse. So I need to have a rethink about how that works, because obviously with Hurricane Doris just being down the road, being here a couple of days ago, in Ireland and the UK, you have to, think about that when you have a greenhouse. But yeah, I mean, that's something that we're going to talk about in the future. But we'll get over to the questions, because I know we have a few more there. Steve?
Yeah, Mark, we've all kind of fell to this, we all buy this product in the supermarket, and it's sold as tastes like butter, looks like butter, smells like butter, and, no one who has any of their scruples would really kind of buy this stuff. And I'm just wondering, if you're going to be using your spread on your toast in the morning, if you had a choice between real butter or one of these lookalikes, I'm guessing you would probably go for the real butter. Would that be correct?
Yep. Oh, totally. And the main reason for that is that many of the synthetic butters and margarines and so forth contain ingredients that are very close to antifreeze. So, the ingredients are so close to plastic, it's untrue.
Well, actually, that's something. I actually work, Mark, in a food ingredients industry, and I know a guy, and he's involved in the milk powder industry, and he actually said the very same thing to me as you just said there. He said that the only difference between plastic and a lot of these spreads that are sold to the general public, he said, is one molecule away from plastic, and that's frightening.
It is, and when you consider they're touted as sort of the healthy option, to my mind, that's eugenics in practice. Yeah,
definitely. We have a comment here from Laurie on People's Internet Radio. Laurie says, and I'll do my best to pronounce it. It's MSM, methyl sulf. No, I won't. It's MSM, and I can't pronounce it.
MSM, that's what we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, she says, is a substance sold in dietary supplement form. It's also found in cow's milk and in a variety of foods, including some types of meat, seafood, fruits and veg. It's said to treat a wide range of health problems, and one of the most common uses for MSM, she says, is in arthritis relief. That's quite interesting.
Yeah. It works exactly the same way in all of those. So it makes the membranes more leaky, if I can put it that way. So that helps the the liquid that's caused when we have an inflammation to come out of the cells more easily.
Yeah.
It's inflammation that hurts. If we didn't have inflammation, we wouldn't know we were ill half the time.
True, yeah.
So MSM's brilliant stuff. So you can buy over the health counter. I'll give everybody a tip. Obviously on the QT, no one's listening, so that's fine. No one knows.
It's only the three of us, Mark. That's all. Nobody else.
It is. So just between us three, you can buy very good MSM very cheaply from the vets. It's used extensively for horses, and you can buy a big 5 kilogram tub for about 15 to 17 pounds.
Wow.
And it comes as a powder. It's very high quality. Obviously, it's used on very expensive racehorses. So, strangely enough, how can I put that? The medicines and drugs and so forth they use on these expensive racehorses are better quality than the ones they give us.
Okay, and what do you put topically on your food, or what do you do when you buy it?
But do you have
it comes as a powder.
Yeah.
Do you rub it on after you've been out for a gallop in the morning?
You could do. Or you get a friend to do it. That might be more interesting.
Sorry.
The easiest way to take it is, on something like scrambled egg or, on your toast and butter or something like it. It's relatively tasteless. I say relatively tasteless. It's not strictly true. It can taste bitter. So you want something that's going to cover that up. One of the ways you can take it is by mixing it into a homemade salad dressing. Because you've then got either the vinegar or the lemon or whatever that will cover up the taste. And the fact that it's a bit tart is, it's just part of the taste.
I remember watching these programs regarding the magic, the magic bullet. I've one of these from years ago. And one of the things they said is that the taste of fruits will always overpower vegetables. So, it's based on that assumption, if you were to take this in your orange juice, you got a spoon and you poured it in your glass of orange juice and took it, would that be the same thing?
Oh yeah, you could put it in there, you could put it in a smoothie or whatever it is. I mean, you're only talking about probably half a teaspoonful at a time anyway.
Okay.
So, mixed into I don't know what you make in a blender, a pint of smoothie or something like that, you're not going to taste it over the flavour of whatever you put in the smoothie.
So you could go into the vets, and what would you ask? You just go up to the vet and say, I'd like a tub of MSM.
You could do, but that will be an expensive way to buy it. Probably the best place to buy it is actually online. Amazon has it, and I'm sure you'll find other places that have it.
Right. Okay. Well, that's good to know. And is there any manufacturer that you'd recommend rather than have a kind of, you don't want your Chinese imports or something? No,
you want one of the European manufacturers, that's for sure. Off the top of my head, I can't remember the last one we got because it was about a year ago. 5 kilograms lasts a long time.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's good to know. And that that's good for things right across the board. I think, Steve, you read them out there, that post there, and MSM is good for a whole mix there. Yeah.
Well, I think the biggest one over here would definitely be the arthritis, because nearly every one in every 5 or 6 people over here seem to have arthritis.
Yeah. Okay.
I have to get my mother-in-law onto that now.
Yeah. Well, I might make a recommendation to this girl, and ask her to try that, because that might be a help. Because again, we have to get to the cause. It's not just treating we have to treat the symptom, but if we can find out what the cause of the problem is, well, then that's half the battle.
That's the complete battle. That's one of the sort of the 4. That's the 4th of the 5 pillars of good health that we are slowly going through, although I've not mentioned them.
Yeah, Steve.
If you don't deal with the cause, the problem's always going to come back.
Yeah, totally.
But, the causes for most of our, I would say probably 80 to 90% of most of our health problems are viruses, bacteria, and parasites. And all of them do not like well oxygenated, slightly alkaline environment. So if by eating poor food we acidify our body, then we're leaving ourselves open to attack. If we eat good food and our body becomes more generally alkaline, then we deal with most of the problems there and then.
And what we have to do, the whole idea behind what you're saying, is our body will deal with what it needs to deal with, but we have to give it the tools so it can deal with it. And that's the simple science of it, isn't it, really?
It is, yeah. The body's in control, but it needs the materials to work with and the tools to work on those materials.
Okay. Now, one of the things that we were told, Bernadette Bowen, who's she's a nutritionist over here, and she had cancer twice, and basically she fought the cancer, and she promotes healthy eating and food, and she's doing a great job. She's been on the show. But one of the things that she did say, and it's important to say, is that people who are juicing, if you're going to get a juicer, because the juicer, the enzymes are there in the fruit and veg if you have it organic. She said, try and take it in 20 minutes juicing. But it's also very important that you get a juicer that's a masticating juicer and not the centrifugal magic bullets. Reason being because the magic bullet, the spinning, burns off the enzymes in the food. Where if you have a masticating juicer, it does it slower, and you take it within 20 minutes and you get the maximum enzymes. And it's the enzymes that we need to give our body to fight whatever we have, whatever the problem is.
Yeah, that's very true. I would totally agree with that. Part of the problem with a lot of the high-speed food production equipment, and they use that extensively in the production of mass-produced food, is the fact that it's destroyed by the process, and that's either through too much heating, too much mechanical handling. Quite often, in order to make sure it doesn't go off while they're waiting to use it, it's stored in not the most ideal circumstances, and it's filled up with different types of preservative.
Yeah.
So I would fully agree with that.
And I actually
and also,
let's
say on top of that, if you're going down the juicing route, you want to have as diverse a range of ingredients as possible. Don't just get stuck on fruit or fruit with little vegetables. Things like beetroot and all of the other types of vegetables that I wouldn't normally recommend because they're high in carbs. You can get away with them in juicing because you're using them raw to start with. And when you have food in its raw state, nature has provided the enzymes within that food for us to break it down.
Yeah, well, I didn't even actually think about the manufacturing or the processing of food using centrifugal mixers in the food processing. So, that makes complete sense. So even though we think we might be getting healthy food, all the good enzymes that we need are all taken out, obviously, through the manufacturing process.
Yeah, either the manufacturing process or later on when they are putting the preservatives in, or when they are pasteurizing it, for instance, to make sure it doesn't go off on the shelf. The pasteurization of milk, for instance, kills off virtually all the enzymes that we need in order to digest the milk.
Yeah.
There is the fact that people are becoming more allergic to milk products is, I think, that one of the factors is that, particularly in the West, we're having milk that is homogenized and pasteurized, and we just don't get the enzymes that we need to break it down in the body. The body can't use it.
Well, we're not supposed to be drinking milk anyway because it's cow's milk. And we're the only animals, Homo sapiens, that actually are drinking milk after we've been weaned. All animals that are weaned stop taking milk.
Plus, we're the only species that drink the milk of another animal.
Exactly. Now, Bernadette Bowen, they've done the research, she's done the research, and she said that although it might contain calcium, it also causes osteoporosis. So,
yeah, the fact that it contains calcium doesn't mean anything. If you take, if you've got calcium without taking vitamin D and vitamin A, then your body can't use it anyway.
Yeah.
So it's not, you can't just take these vitamins and minerals in isolation. They have to be taken in a way that the body can use them. Now, the first thing is that obviously the best place to get those vitamins and minerals is when they've already been absorbed into something else, like fruit or vegetables or in the meat or whatever it is you happen to be eating. That's the best way, because the body recognizes that as something akin to food. But when it comes when it comes into the body in, I use the term a synthetic form, the body throws up its hands, as it were, a little microbe to the hands and goes, what the hell's that?
Yeah.
We can't use that. So then it's got to deal with it, and it's got to flush it out. So by eating food that's not food, you're putting extra stress on the body. It's got to deal with all of that, and if you continue to do that, then it's eventually going to break down.
Yeah, that's a good point. One of the tips that somebody said to me as well, which I think is quite important, is that the longer the actual use-by date, the worse it is for you.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So if it's going to go off in a few hours, that's good. If it's going to last for 5 or 6 months or longer, then chances are that's not going to be good for you.
Yeah, I mean, you have to, well, I'm sure we can all appreciate the fact that in order to preserve or stop something going off on the shelf, then it has to be treated with something. It has to have preservatives in it. It has to have something that stops the basic bacteria within the food doing their job. Now, part of the job that they do, when food ripens, for instance, when we eat food that's at the right level of ripeness, the body loves it because it can access all of the nutrients in that fruit, because those nutrients have been, also the cells and the fibres that are locking those nutrients in have been broken down enough that when it goes through our digestive system, the digestive system can get to them easily. So that's why, if you eat fruit that's not ripe, or you eat fruit to start with, then the body can't get access to it, doesn't like it. And likewise, when you eat fruit that's gone well past ripe, then you've got too much of those bacteria in there, and other organisms.
Well, funny you should say that. I mean, I like bananas, but I try and get them where they're just about to have the kind of just the brown. Where there's a little bit of brown on them, and that's when they seem to taste
on the outside.
Best. Yeah, that's when they seem to taste
the
best.
That's. Yeah, well, that's actually the point where the natural sugars have come to probably the highest level.
Yeah. Okay, we've more questions for you, Steve.
Yes. Where to go? I've loads of comments and questions here. Laurie says, I definitely think an all-round goodness for the body to use every day is organic coconut oil. Does Mark agree?
Yes. In a word, it's brilliant stuff. And you can also make coconut milk as well. If you can get I've got a friend in the Philippines. We were talking about this, I suppose, a few months ago, and they were saying that their mother used to make coconut milk at home, and all they did was they got the coconuts, they stripped out the flesh, they put the flesh in a bucket, about half full of the white flesh, and then they topped it up with water. And they left it overnight, or sometimes the next day as well, just with the cloth over the top. And then they'd come back and they'd scrape off the cream off the top, and then they'd get the milk, and then you'd have a sort of much weaker mixture down the bottom. And she said that was used extensively by them, both the fat for cooking, for drinking, and just for sort of general use in the kitchen. It was brilliant stuff.
And it's great.
Ever so easy to make.
Yeah, and the coconut oil is great for frying as well. If you have to fry something, it's great to do it in that, because obviously a lot of people have been using the olive oil, virgin olive oil, and again, for a long time I thought, that must be that's obviously the stuff to use, until I found out that once you fry it, it goes past its a boiling point and it turns rancid. I wasn't aware of that. Of course, now don't use it. We actually do use the coconut oil, and it's not that expensive. It can be got quite cheaply too.
Yes, it can be. I mean, what are you paying for a jar now? About £4 or £5, I suppose, in the UK.
About that, yeah.
Yeah,
over here, yeah. Okay, we'll crack
on.
I mean,
the best thing to frying actually is butter. That's the most, I'll say, bomb-proof thing you can fry in.
Really?
Okay.
Obviously the real butter.
Real butter, yeah.
Not that plastic stuff.
Yeah.
No, I mean, the plastic stuff is, like most plastics, it gives off quite nice noxious fumes when you cook with it.
Yeah, you don't want to be...
The manufacturers don't tell you that, though.
No,
they don't.
Well, we'll crack. We have a lot of questions and comments there. We'll try and get through them. Steve?
Right, Chris just wanted me, Alan, to let you know that a kebab is still a kebab, even if it's juiced.
Well, thanks for that, Chris. Yeah.
So, we'll keep that in mind.
I did like the kebabs in the local chippy until every now and again I treat myself to a kebab. I know it's not great. But then I noticed that they were actually microwaving the kebab, and then I just said, no, that's it, end of story. I'm not doing that anymore. I keep away from microwave food. Sorry, go ahead, Steve.
Right, Mark, Shane is wondering, fruit smoothies, are they good or bad?
They are good up to a point. You're much better to mix fruit and veg because you'll get a much broader range of nutrients in them. And also, if you have too much fruit, then you're also going to you're going to spike your sugar intake. And obviously that's going to have repercussions with insulin and all sorts. So you want to try and smooth out the carbohydrate content of all the smoothies that you have. So you want to really go for some fruit, some root vegetables, and probably as much of the vegetables grown above ground as you can take.
Right, I'm going to just kind of put you on the spot very quickly, Mark, because this question, it will come up, I know it will. But if you were to say to someone, the absolute best were just maybe a handful of ingredients, the best smoothie you could possibly have in the morning, set yourself up, would be what? What would be in it?
I would say leafy greens, as the base.
Yeah.
And then whatever you fancy to cover up the taste, because they don't taste that brilliant. So you can have spinach, you can have kale, you can have whatever you like. But say leafy greens probably about one of the best ones.
Okay, we actually tried that before. Both Alan and I, we actually did. We juiced cabbage and we juiced kale, and I have to say, it's an acquired taste. It's definitely an acquired taste.
See, I do have a very sensitive palate, and Steve just said, "I'm going to knock this down," and it tasted. It smelled foul, let alone tasted foul.
Yeah, you've got to add stuff in to make it palatable. But you can always go to sort of the lighter things. Like watercress and, those type of things.
No, that's for sissies. I'm sorry.
You were hardcore, Steve. I know.
Hardcore leafy greens.
Yeah, it's iron watercress,
Yeah.
So spinach, actually.
Okay, so what else do we have there on the list?
Laurie says, grow your own blueberries, she says, herbs, tomatoes and bell peppers, etc. indoors on windowsills. No need for a garden. Actually just seen some research during the week as well. I know it was actually old research, but they're saying the benefits of blueberries are absolutely fantastic. A lot of the antioxidants in blueberries are just amazing.
Yes, they are. It is a go-to fruit for a lot of people. Simply because it's also quite low in carbs as well, so you get quite a nutritional bang for your buck, but you're not having too much sugar, so it's an ideal fruit to eat. Great in your lunchbox because you can put them in a little cup with a lid over the top and you just snack on them as you want.
Yeah, and like I say, I mean they actually taste good too. So
they do.
Yeah.
And you can put those in your smoothies with the cabbage.
Ooh, cabbage and blueberry smoothie. Yeah, I like the sound of that.
It would look bad as well, wouldn't it? Really,
Okay.
Well, I think we're up to date.
We're up to date. The questions are brilliant. All right. So we have about 15 minutes left, Mark. Right. Start throwing out to us stuff that you would recommend people doing. Now, remember we have a budget to kind of stick to. But like you're saying about juicing and recommendations on what you would say people need to do to start, doing the preventative treatment rather than firefighting.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the first thing to do is, as I said at the top of the show, is stop poisons in. If you stop putting poisons in the body, then the body's not going to have to use energy in order to fight them, digest them, or do whatever. The next thing is you want to nourish the body. You want to feed your mitochondria. Best way of doing it is to reduce or eliminate carbs because they actually stop the absorption of the food that we should be giving our cells. Go organic, obviously, as much as you can. I'm going to come back to that in a minute. Drink lots of fresh, pure water. How you get that is difficult to say. I mean, the stuff that comes out the tap is normally quite foul and full of all sorts of things. But a good water filter will sort that out most of the time. And the last thing you want to do is eat a lot more fat. And the more fat you eat, the more your body will become used to using fat for energy instead of carbs. And you can have better quality fat cheaper than you can have, I'll use the term carbs cheaper, if you see what I mean.
Yeah, I mean, this is great information, but what I find a lot of the time is, you say, like, eat fat. Can you give us an example of a product that you'd recommend to do that?
Do you like coffee?
Coffee?
Yeah.
Do I like coffee? I don't really drink it. I have the odd cappuccino, but...
Okay. Well, I mean, the easiest way to take more fat is to put a pat of butter in your coffee, which is quite nice, in your smoothie, which is quite nice. Taking more fat in the form of butter is a very easy thing to do. Put it on your scrambled eggs, or whatever it is you happen to be eating, even if it's garden peas. A little knob of butter on the top for each person not only makes them taste nice, but you get that extra fat kick as well.
Funny enough, the chefs, when they're cooking, even beans, Heinz baked beans, they actually recommend putting a knob of butter in with a bit of black pepper. Yeah.
I mean, I follow a lot of French cuisine, having lived there for so many years, and butter virtually goes in everything, even in the soup.
Okay, so you're saying coffee?
They do think I'm a bit strange.
So you're saying coffee's okay?
I drink coffee.
Okay.
I drink coffee in the morning. I don't drink coffee normally after lunch.
Okay.
And I probably have 3 cups a day. And I don't make mine too strong either. I drink it because I like the taste.
Okay.
From that point of view, there's nothing wrong with coffee. Obviously, if you are constantly going to the coffee pot in order to wake yourself up and that sort of thing, there's something else that needs dealing with. There's an underlying problem of why you haven't got energy, so that needs to be looked at. The next thing I think everybody needs to do is, whatever their state of health, they need to, and they find they've got some sort of problem, and we've all got some sort of problems, is not to put a sticking plaster on it. Go and search for the cause of the problem. And if you go to a doctor, the doctor's vested interest, and what he's trained to do, is to give you something that will deal with the symptoms. Because then you come back as a repeat customer.
Yeah.
They don't want to treat the cause because the cause is going to cost them business. I know it's quite frank to say that, but that is the purpose of the health or the sickness care system that we have. It's there to make money. It's not there to deal with the problems. Otherwise, we would have things like MMN and MSM and all the other things that we've been talking about earlier would be used because they're effective. There's a whole. How much time have we got left? How are we doing for time, guys?
Yeah, we have about 7 minutes left.
Yeah, if you look at the modern food provision health industry, there's a huge connection going right the way through. If you take farming has been, it's particularly in the West, has been hugely industrialized. They do monocropping, they use a huge amount of chemicals, and in order to try and get production, but they end up producing food that is devoid of nutrition.
Yeah.
Now, I know when I looked at this about 10 years ago, the level of nutrition in the average type of vegetables that we have on the table now are only a fifth of what they were back in the 50s. So, a lot of the nutritional guidance that is continually rolling out doesn't take into account the fact that the actual level of vitamins and minerals that we get in fruit has gone down by, 80% or so.
Well, my mother said to me, she remembers as a kid, and my mother is about 80 at the moment, but she said she remembers as a kid seeing her grandfather put a cup into a pan of boiling cabbage and taking the cabbage water out and drinking that with his dinner.
We used to do that years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. Everyone, when I was growing up, and I'm only, I'm less than 50, but yeah, we used to do that as well. Whenever you'd make cabbage, a cup of cabbage water. Now,
I've got this down. We've talked about the IR gelée and stuff, and Steve has some.
Not
now,
anymore.
It's gone now, is it,
gone.
Steve? Now, what happened was the fruit and veg, or the veg that we had years ago, contained. I'm going to look for it now. I'm looking for the name of it now. It's called the nitric oxide booster, right? So the veg contained nitric oxide, and that was the natural enzyme in the veg that cleared our arteries. But because of over manufacturing and we're not getting the real stuff that we had years ago, that's why we're getting blockages in our arteries. And this pro-arginine or iarginine is the stuff that gives you the nitro oxide to clear the arteries of blockages. We can go down the road with that, but we don't have enough time for that. But I will say to people, that's what's lacking in our vegetables today.
It's lacking in the vegetables, but the other thing is that we've had a total switch of balance. We've got far more grains in the food that we're eating now than we had 50 or probably 60 or 70 years ago now. Far more sugar in the food that we're eating.
Yeah.
And all of those lead to poor circulation. If you've got poor circulation, then anything floating in the blood that would normally be taken out of the body gets an opportunity to stick to the artery walls, for instance. And the other part of that is exercise. You don't need that much exercise to move the blood around your body, but you do need some.
Yeah. Just get out, even walking.
Even walking's ideal. I mean, I stand up all day. I've got a stand-up desk, and the fact that I'm standing up, I'm actually dancing, and I'm sort of rocking from foot to foot. I'm sort of stepping backwards and forwards and all sorts of things. If you're standing up, then you're moving. If you're sat in the chair all day, like many office workers are, that's a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, no, I think it's important that exercise is a major factor of getting the blood flowing, because the blood contains oxygen, and that needs to get around your body. We have 2 questions for you, Mark, so I'm going to get Steve to ask you them.
Okay, well, one came in from Barbara Ann on the chat room there, and she wants to know, Mark, your thoughts on spirulina.
Yeah, it's a very good thing to have. It's very highly nutrient dense, and 9 times out of 10 it's quite natural. Again, it's down to quality. I'm just trying to think of who it is. There's a Canadian chap, either Rod or Rodney, I can't remember now. He's actually taken that to the next level, and that's something I'll have to come back on, because there's something I want to say, and I don't want to mislead people.
No, that's no problem. You come back in your own time. Even if it's an email fired over to us, we can read out, or maybe next time you're on. Yeah. Okay, and we'll call this the final question from Chris. You can always count on Chris for an interesting question. Beer or wine, which is better?
Well, I don't like beer, so I'm going to have to say wine.
Red or white?
Red, always.
Red always. But
white is for sissies.
Yeah. There's supposed to be lots of oxidants, or is it oxidants or antioxidants in the red wine?
Antioxidants, yeah. And not only that, there's a huge variety of vitamins and minerals that you find, micronutrients as well in wine.
Excellent. So red wine for everybody.
We'll have to get the OYM wine in. Maybe we'll have to do OYM wine. Mark, it's fantastic information. There is a quick questions that come in the chat room there, and we'll throw this in as well. And Colin just wants to know, hydroponics or aquaponics?
Right, okay. I mean, my gut feeling is to say neither, because both of them rely on additives that are fed to the plants in order to grow them. However, if you're doing aquaponics in a natural water course, then go for it. I mean, the best aquaponics you can find are those done in the sea for growing things like seaweed as a food. Yeah.
And seaweed, we've been hearing that it's so many proteins in seaweed. It's something that we need to look into. We know a little bit about it, but we don't know a lot about it, and maybe that's something we need to look into. But Mark, it's been fantastic having you on. We love talking about the health stuff because it's something that people can do. They can get involved in. They can check ingredients, and even on a tight budget, they can do the little things. Now, we mightn't be able to afford a lot of the stuff due to money, but we can make a difference to our health by at least avoiding the nasty stuff and being aware of them, and maybe getting the odd bits of fruit and veg and juicing, and I do think it's maybe you can't do an awful lot, but you can make a change, even buying the likes of coconut oil, or doing a juicing now and again, or changing a diet thing that you're used to. Like, I've stopped eating biscuits now. I love my cup of tea and my Dunkin' biscuit and stuff like that. And I have to admit, I've stayed away from biscuits now for the last 5 weeks. Do I feel any difference? Not really, but I know it's better for me to stay away from the biscuits.
Totally. I mean, you're cutting down immensely on the sugars. You're cutting down hugely on the carbs that the wheat products, grain products that you're eating. So the less biscuits or any type of snack food that you eat, the better you are off.
Yeah, and I'm trying to, go for the fruit. So I'm not buying the biscuits, and they're staying out of the house. But what I am buying to replace them is fruit. And that's the kind of psyche behind it, although I'm sure the family will give out because they'll say, where's the bloody biscuits? But that's another issue I have to deal with. Mark, it's been a pleasure having you on. It's great information. We'll definitely be doing a part 2 on the show. Thanks again for coming on. I'm going to pass you over to Steve. Steve's going to get all your contact details where people can find you and track you down. Steve.
Okay.
Yeah, Mark, I want to say it's been absolutely fantastic. I've enjoyed every minute of the information. So have the listeners. A lot of the listeners have already typed in the chat room there that they want you on again for a part 2. Do a part 2. And there's so much that we haven't even covered. I mean, I had your website opened up here, Mark Moxom, Moxom, .com. I had that opened here with the snack box diet. We wanted to talk about the snack box diet as well. We didn't even get into that, and there's just so much information. So you have to come on again. But outside of your website, markmoxom.com, is there any other, have you a YouTube channel or any other way people can find out more about you and what you do?
Well, a lot of the information that I come across has obviously been picked up over a sort of a lifetime of interest and self-preservation, I suppose you could say. But I also interview a lot of interesting people on the Low Carb Paleo Show, and that can be found at lowcarbpaleoshow.com. As sister to that is a magazine that I'm the executive editor of, and that's Low Carb Mag, and that's at lowcarbmag.com.
And I'm guessing I know all those links can be found on your main website as well.
They can indeed, yeah. So that's the easiest place to get hold of me. I think I'm on places like Facebook as, whatever it is, /Mark Moxom, Twitter and all those sort of things. I managed to get hold of my own IP, intellectual property, that is. And so you can get hold of me most ways. But the best way of getting hold of me is through any of the contact forms on either lowcarbpaleoshow.com or lowcarbmag.com.
Brilliant. Excellent, Mark. Okay, stay with us there, Mark. We're just going to go off to a musical break, and we'll be back after this.
This is Open Your Mind Radio on OYMradio.com, UnitedWeStrike.com, and PeoplesInternetRadio.com. Okay,
we're back. Great information there from Mark Moxom. If you're looking for his website, it does MOXOM. An M on the end, not an N. If you do find the N, it's not him, it's a different guy altogether. Just in relation to that song, if you could even call it a song, I don't know who it was, the artist's name is not here, but it's I Eat Cannibals from Alan's personal 45 collection.
Yeah, exactly, but you selected the song.
That's because you kept waving at me saying, play that, play that, play that.
Definitely not one of mine. Right, okay, a great guest on with Mark, the information he has. Always great to share information and pass it around, things that we can do on a practical level, very important. And some of the times, it's very hard to be dedicated to this 100%, but what I always say to people, do what you can. You know, because it's all about preventative maintenance. And if you can't afford to eat organic every day, which most of us can't, just, you know, the big stuff like the aspartames, the MSGs, the fluoride, just stay away from that stuff and try and, you know, be aware of that. As I say, I've given up the biscuits as best I can, and I'm replacing it with fruit. And, you know, I take orange juice and water, make sure that I'm hydrated, green tea, and now and again I throw in BiCarb. You know, I mean, all these little things. On my Sunday dinner, I tend to use turmeric. Turmeric, some people call it.
Yeah. Are you still dunking the bananas in your tea?
No, definitely not. I gave up dunking the bananas. Who's dunking anyway?
Dunkin' Donuts.
Okay, just a couple of things to finish up on. Now, a few weeks ago, we said about it was predicted that there'd be an asteroid hitting the planet between the 16th and the 26th of February. And, yeah, nothing happens as usual. So, there you go. So, no asteroid there. More like hemorrhoids than asteroids, I'd say. And, right, okay. And, obviously, this is 2017 is, you know, we are told it's going to be a very important year. Loads of things going on. And we are now coming, obviously, to the end of February into March. 2 months down. And remember Laura Eisenhower coming on saying the most important part is the 5 years between 2013 and 2017. So it's, you know, we're going to keep an eye on things and what's developing and what's happening. So that's quite an interest. But I don't know whether you've seen what happened with Micheál Martin from the Fianna Fáil party. He's an Irish TD on the Fianna Fáil party. Did you hear what happened, Steve?
No, I didn't. Do tell.
It was a bit like an episode of Father Ted. Basically, Micheál Martin was on Irish TV, and he was two things. He got a donation off a guy called Owen O'Callaghan, and the money went into his wife's account. So it's a bit like Father Ted. It was just resting in my account. So he kind of was on Irish TV, and I have to say TV3 kind of said, "Why was the money in your wife's account, Micheál?" And he said, "There's nothing me did it was inappropriate, blah, 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 blah." And then they said, "You said that you didn't have a meeting between yourselves, Bertie O'Hearn and Owen O'Callaghan, but we have documented evidence that meeting took place." "Oh, no, that meeting didn't take place, but we have documented evidence that it did, Micheál." So, Fianna Fáil, the new Fianna Fáil, exactly like the old Fianna Fáil, just with the word new instead rather than old. I just don't believe people are still voting for these idiots. I'm sorry, I'm going to call them idiots because they are. And they just have the people, they've bent us over and they are taking us from behind. And that's basically what's happening with these TDs. And as long as we accept them doing that, they'll keep doing it.
Did you say strap in or strap on?
Both. Strap in for the strap on. It's a coming. So that's, you know, I just don't believe that these idiots are still in government and we're accepting it. But the good news is and it was great to talk to the people at the Open Mind Conference, the individuals that I spoke to. Things are happening. People are realising what's going on, finally. The groups around the country are planning to do whatever they need to do, and things are being organised. People are beginning to wake up and see what's going on. And we're saying, look, we don't need the government. This is what we're going to do. And because it's groups all around the country, all individuals, it's not one person or it's not one group. It's all different groups doing different things, which is fantastic. And that might frighten the powers that be. I hope it does. But we need to get the information out there and pass the word around. And a big thank you to all the listeners who tune in, come in on the chat room and who listen to this show. And we'd just like to ask you to help us promote Open Your Mind Radio and alternative radio in general, not just OYM, but alternative radio, because we do find that a lot of people don't realise that alternative radio is out there. We've been running, this is going to be our 7th year. And, you know, people say, we need to do something about this. We should be allowed to have a radio station, or we should. And you know, when you hear this, you think, well, they're all out there. You just have to go and look. So, you know, just pass the word around. Let people know that we're there, and they can tune in on the internet radio or on the internet, and you know, and just pass the word around. That's really what we're asking. Just a little bit of, you know, PR. If you like what you hear, great. If you don't like what you hear, that's fine as well. Just email us and let us know. And make sure it's constructive, and, you know, we're happy to reply back. And if there's anything you don't like, we can reply back and give you reasons why, if there is a reason. So I think that's a fair comment.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, we've said this from the time we started, really, that we welcome all criticism, be it, well, if it's constructive, even better, you know. But I mean, we have had a lot of emails over the years, and most of it has been positive, I have to say. Someone once said that they didn't like the banter at the beginning of the show before we got the guest on, but that was just a one-off, and I think it was someone from across the pond in the US. But again, most of the comments that we do get from time to time, and emails from across the pond and from other countries as well, it's generally positive. They're saying that they enjoy it. You know, I mean, if we got a lot of people saying that they didn't enjoy something, we will probably look at it and go, oh, hang on a second, can we change it, make it better, or stop doing it altogether? But as we're kind of, our target audience is Ireland, and I think the Irish people in general get the Irish wit and the Irish sense of humour, you know. So. And
we have expats who actually email us and say they love the intro because we do talk about some Irish things that are going on, and it keeps them up to date of what's going on in Ireland.
True, yeah.
So that's the way they see it. Now, the guest next week is quite controversial. It's a chap called Owen Pardue, and he's on Facebook called Public Official Watchdog. And you might have seen his videos on YouTube and on Facebook where he actually goes up to the police, and, you know, if they're doing anything untoward or he thinks they're doing untoward, he goes up and points it out to them and says, why is the law different for you than us? And it's been, for some people, they kind of find it quite controversial. Sometimes he does get in a guard's face when it's probably not called for. That's what some people would say. So we've asked Owen to come on the show, and I know something, he said that he was accused of something by the Gardaí, and he was put through the ringer, and nothing came of it. But that really spurred him on to realise how corrupt the system is. And just on the week there was a report that 212 Gardaí were done or have been reported regarding corruption. I seen a report on Facebook got to do with that. It was in the national newspapers. Is it true? Again, we don't know, but it does report on it. So this chap goes around. He's got an American accent, but he's Irish. So we're going to get Owen on the show, and we're going to have a chat with him next week and see what the story is with that. But again, we just finish up. For myself, Alan James, thanks to everyone for tuning in. It's much appreciated. Thanks for your support, your donations. It's a big help. It really keeps the wheels going. Take care of yourself and eat more greens. Keep away from the sugar, and we'll see you next week. Take care. Bye-bye.
Okay, from myself, Stephen George, it's been a great, good information, and we'll do it all again next week. Again, as I said, if you're listening to us on the podcast, as you most likely are now, do send us an email, info@oymradio.com. Let us know where you're tuning in from. It's always nice to find out. Okay, stay tuned if you're on People's Internet Radio stream. Vin will be up next. We'll see you all again in 7 days. Take care, bye-bye.